right, now we got more topics to go through, and obviously we got two avid golf fans here. It's appropriate we talk about Bubba Watson and what he did. It was a remarkable weekend too, as well, at the Masters, especially that Sunday. You had Bo Van Pelt, who tied a club record in terms of one-day hole with a round with 64. Then you had obviously Phil Mickelson going lefty to righty on a particular hole and triple bogeying. Then you saw Oosterhuizen with the great double eagle there on the second hole, and the first time a double eagle has been recorded on television at the Masters, which is really neat. And of course, Bubba Watson winning the whole thing, and how emotional that guy. And personally, you gotta love how this guy plays, and it's really nice to see him get the green jacket.
Yeah, he's not your traditional country club guy. He's not a cookie cutter golf player like so many are in the PGA, just kind of vanilla players that don't have a lot of motion, that all swing the same. They all dress, well, most of them dress the same. But Bubba, he has an unorthodox swing, as much, you never see an unorthodox until you see me swing, but a very unorthodox swing, never played in the country club, never had golf lessons, and what does he do? He wins the Masters. It's just amazing.
The first weekend in April is my favorite weekend of the year. The weather is starting to get good around here. Spring is coming, and the Masters is on. So Sunday afternoon from 1 to 5 o'clock is my favorite 4 hours of TV in the year. And it didn't disappoint me this year. Oosterhuizen and Bubba, extra holes, miraculous shots, and came down to a short putt for the win, and Bubba would be a popular champion.
Oh, and he's got that lifetime, I guess with you win the Masters, you get a lifetime membership there.
But so, I really wanted to see the former runner of the Augusta there, one of the managers of Augusta, Hootie present the jacket to Bubba. That would have been great, but Hootie retired.
Oh, he also mentioned that he also sounded like a little bit like Foghorn Leghorn.
Yes, yes.
So it would have been appropriate to hear him on the mic. It's just going to give me to Bubba. But yes, a great time. What, or how I should say, does this Masters rate in terms of the other classics that we've had in years past?
I think our other classics in the year past, we always expected Phil to be there. I always expected some guy named Woods to be there. You know, all those big names. Never expected a guy named Bubba to be in a great game of golf.
That last hour, there's 4 or 5 guys that could have won the championship. And it was a give and take, and those 2 guys finally emerged. Looking back over the years, when you have the year that Tiger was 18 under and he won by 6 or 8 strokes, you can turn the thing off at 3 o'clock. So this was, to me, it was a great year.
And kind of interesting, they didn't show Woods at all. They didn't show him live at all in that final
We didn't even
round.
talk about him
No.
until you mentioned him just briefly. We wondered how long we were going to go without talking about Tiger Woods in a sports segment, but I think we set a record.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but yeah, you're absolutely right. Tiger Woods wasn't the main factor, regardless, even the way he played. It was about Bubba Watson and about the other golfers that really came out to shine, and it was a remarkable Masters. Let's move on. We'll talk about Craig Berube. You guys touched on it before in our previous segment. He made some comments, and I mean that loosely, regarding Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin, calling them cheats and dirty players, among other things. That led to also Mike Milbury saying Crosby's a punk, etc., and this thing kind of blew up. Is there some merit to what they're saying?
Yeah, there's some. You know, you heard this story about some guy up in Edmonton in the early 80s, Gretzky. They called him a whiner. Every time he stepped on the ice in Calgary, they chanted whiner, whiner, whiner. So now Crosby's getting it now. So, you know, you've seen this movie before, and it was just the different characters.
You know, I'm not crazy about coaches getting involved with players and making comments on other players. There's a purpose to it. When Sidney Crosby does something, everybody knows about it. If that incident between Shen and Crosby had happened to 2 other players, it wouldn't have been mentioned. So when it's Crosby, it's hyper. Everybody's got to know about it. And the fact that Berube comment on it, you might get old Sidney another reason to bear down when they're playing Philadelphia in the series.
Yeah, it should be interesting too as well. But there are some fair comments. You know, Berube may could have said it a little bit politely, I guess. But you know, obviously, when it's Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, you don't really, you know, mince words. You kind of tell it how it is. And Berube had a point, because Crosby at the beginning of his year beginning of his career rather, used to whine a lot, complained a lot, got high-sticked a lot because the guys were telling him to shut up. Yeah. So there is some merit to what.
But do you
Berube
think Sidney's maybe covered a little bit more than most players? You know, when Sidney Crosby's on the ice, everybody knows when 87's on the ice, and maybe he gets a little extra stick, gets a little extra body every time. if you're not doing that, then you're not doing your job.
Well, there you go. There's the other point of it. All right, let's move on to Tom Rennie. Obviously, coaching can be a big thing with the Oilers. Well, Rennie, frustrated to say the least, really has kind of lost it. Was fined earlier or the last week of the season when they were taking on LA, and he's really come up to do some soul searching, really. And it's now his contract is expired. Potentially he could be back. Who knows what's going to happen with the Oilers over the offseason. But is this a guy that you want to bring back into your organization?
Likely not. Likely not. What you're hearing right now is Todd Nelson, who did a great job for the Oilers farm team in Oak City. Likely he's going to be that guy that come up, a former PA Raider. So, yeah, I think it's time for a change.
I disagree, Bucky. Tom Rennie has spent 3 years developing this team. They are getting better. As I said before, I think you give coaches too much credit when they're winning, and they take too much of the blame when they're not winning. And I don't think the team is to a point where they expect playoff caliber. At the start of the year, they ended up exactly where they said they'd be. They're improving. Wins and points are getting better every year.
But can you honestly say, though, like the fact that you know this is going to be a losing season, or I guess a season that they're trying to build, when you give more opportunities for your young guns, and Tom Rennie didn't really do that. He kind of played the Horkovs and the Ryan Smiths a little bit more, and the Hemskys, rather than playing the kid line, which, if you look at what they did with that power play once Nugent Hopkins came in this year, was phenomenal.
Yeah, I have to question sometimes. You know, I was up in Edmonton, watched a few games, and questioned the line juggling that Rennie did, and wonder why certain players weren't seeing the ice as much as others. That's just as a fan. Maybe I believe Tom Rennie's days are done in Edmonton, and I think it's time. If they're going to progress and they feel they're going to build this club, maybe build with a young coach like a Todd Nelson who's coming up in the system, which shows the Oilers have a lot of faith in their farm system.
I think the biggest mistake Tom Rennie made was going on a bit of a streak last fall and getting people like Greg Buchanan all excited that they're going to win the Stanley Cup this year, and then reality set back in. You look at your team, the defense, they had adequate goaltending, but their defense just isn't good enough to play at this level. Yeah. And some of the efforts from the guys that as a coach, that's what causes that reaction. You're so frustrated with players that are making millions of dollars a year and give you half an effort every night.
All right.
It's frustrating.
Well, it can be frustrating, but it hasn't been frustrating over here. We're going to take a quick break. We also got some more Gloves Are Off coming up.